Hey, good morning, Dave. How are you doing?
Morning, Asim. I'm living the dream.
Great, awesome. Uh, hey, I think we should begin by introducing ourselves. If you wanted to go first, that would be great, and then I will go ahead and introduce myself.
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Dave. I solutions consulting leader, product background, living in the Bay Area. Right now, just doing some advising and trying to find my next interesting gig.
Awesome. My name is Asim. I founded Amelino to help sales teams find information that they need so they can close deals faster. Dave and I actually go back a long time, and we've traveled we traveled to China together. Isn't that right, Dave?
Yep. Uh, we had a study abroad in both Beijing and Shanghai for a business school at Santa Clara. It's
Yeah, yeah,
been
and
a
I think
minute.
it's interesting that we went right before the Beijing Olympics that were scheduled to happen in 2008. Isn't I think
Yes,
that's the right year, right?
it was. Yeah, it was. It was interesting to see all
Yeah.
the infrastructure they were building.
It was. I personally was very impressed with it, and obviously that was a different time, but it was a lot of fun. And then I'm glad we reconnected recently, a few months back, Dev.
Yes, sir.
Great. Hey, so I wanted to. You've been in sales all your life. You've seen sales both inside and out. Seen it from all different angles. So I think it'll be very good to talk to you about some of the problems that you have seen sales teams struggle with. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I definitely have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to sales processes, information, etc. So I definitely have to chat about that.
Dave, one of the things that I have found by talking to a lot of sales leaders is sellers don't always put consistent information in the CRM. They either don't want to, they don't have the time, they don't have the information, they don't have the inclination. I don't know. Is that something you've seen? Why do you
Oh,
think that?
absolutely, absolutely. It's a lot of it's time. It can take a fair amount of time to get information into the CRM. A lot of it is knowing what they need to put in. Sometimes they're being asked to put too much in. Even the best folks don't do it 100% of the time. And so yeah, it's definitely a problem that I see.
One of the interesting things I learned I was talking to a friend. Talking is a strong word. He and I were having drinks, let's just say that. And he told me that in his organization, one of the problems that happens, which is why sellers don't put information in the CRM, is that those deals get poached by another team. And what he was telling me was, you know, uh, a seller would do all of the hard work, the legwork to move a deal forward, and as it gets closer, the quote unquote named accounts team would come in and just poach the deal, take away the credit. The seller that did all the work wouldn't get any compensation. I mean, that just sounds wrong, I guess.
It it is wrong, but I would argue there's a fundamental problem with the the process at the very beginning. If a named account if a named account exec can come in and take a deal from you, it means you're working a deal you shouldn't have been working because it's not in your name. So I think there's a lack of communication there, clearly, and a lack of following the rules, probably by the initial salesperson. Because a named account person can only come in and take your deal if it's on the list of named accounts. So there's a mismatch there. Now maybe the data in the CRM is inaccurate. Who knows? And maybe that named account person wasn't made aware that someone was reaching out and having these conversations and updating the CRM. So definitely a problem, and I've seen it happen where a commercial company goes after an account, goes after an enterprise account, and all those kind of different things. Yeah, it's never a good thing in the sales world when people are doing that.
What's interesting to me, as everybody, I'm sure everybody's thinking about the same problem. But what's interesting to me is that there is an inherent conflict or tension in the system, which is, for whatever reason, the individual salesperson might not either be motivated or incented to put information in the CRM, but at the same time, the sales leadership of that organization wants all of that information for deal forecasting
Yeah.
and predictability and things like that. I don't know. I mean, is that like a common thing across every organization? Are we just destined to live with that?
Well, one, I'll answer the first. I don't think we're destined to deal with it. I think there are ways around it, but It is common, and I see it. I see people sometimes hesitant to enter information into the CRM, less about poaching, because if you have strong rules of engagement and a strong sales operations motion and enforcement of policy, deal poaching doesn't happen as much. But I think a lot of folks are hesitant about deep inspection by sales leadership on early stage opportunities. And dollar values you might attribute, this could be $100,000 deal or $1 million deal, and they don't want that kind of level of inspection yet, so they often sandbag information or keep it out. Do I think we're destined for it? No. Particularly in the last year to 2 years, I think there's a lot of things technologically that can happen to take away the burden of the AE or the SDR or the solutions consultant or whoever it is to make sure they're updating the proper systems to give the information to leadership for proper forecasting, but also not to spend tons and tons of their own time doing it. Right? So I don't think we're destined to it.
It's funny you talk about people not putting information to kind of avoid scrutiny, and I'll share this little anecdote from my own experience. And I'll say this: I've never been a professional salesperson, but I've had the pleasure and honor of working with a lot of salespeople. I've seen this, that often people would not put information till they were much more confident in that deal in the CRM. Especially when they were working on a really large bluebird kind of deal, they wouldn't want to put it in the CRM because they knew the moment they did that, everybody up from the director of sales to the VP of sales to the CFO to the CEO, everybody would be up in their business and be like, every day, hey, Dave, where are we with this deal? Where are we with this deal? And, just sucks up all the oxygen, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I've seen this myself. I think it's a real thing.
And I think, other than just the downsides of not having accurate information for the sales team, I don't think people have a lot of sales folks have an appreciation for how that data is important to other parts of the organization as well. The product, or you're in product, I be in product as well. Understanding why deals, like the types of deals that we lose, and why, is just as important to help inform product roadmap, etc. But if I don't get that data in because I'm worried about scrutiny, I've now messed up other parts of the organization as well in our future. So I think there's got to be a better way, both of managing it and just giving people
which I think kind of goes back to the inherent tension between the needs of the organization and the needs of the individual. And I think it's like, I find like every organization is trying to find that balance between pushing their sellers all the time to update information in the CRM, and of course the needs of the CFO, the CRO, to kind of get better predictability into their business. There's got to be a better way, I think.
No, there is. Right. I mean, and I think once again, with what the technological advances that are happening right now, there are better ways than that.
One of the things that I've found, again, we're talking to a lot of CROs, is many companies believe in this idea that, look, if it's not in the CRM, you don't get paid. They're just using that stick instead of the carrot to lean on the sellers to update the CRM. And they're just enforcing a my words, not everybody else's. They're enforcing this very draconian discipline where, like, hey, even if you close the deal, but if you don't find it in the CRM, you don't get paid. So to me, it's a very stick-heavy approach. I don't know. I mean, have you seen that? Are my views biased? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of companies have built their sales processes and sales motions on that you can't get through deal desk. You can't even get a deal approved if it hasn't gone through the CRM. So yeah, you're not going to get paid because it's not feeding into any of your downstream systems, like your commission statement system, which then flows into finance, which flows into payroll. It's not flowing into your implementation team. So I personally don't think it's draconian. I think there's a level of laziness in some sales folks. Not all, some. And I think at the very least, whether you have all the information in the CRM is different than having the deal in the CRM, right? Because an account and an opportunity should be there, right? I don't think that's draconian. I think if you didn't have every I dotted and T crossed, and you didn't have that, yes, I agree that would be a bit much. But you can't track things if you don't have the internet. So I do understand why it needs to be in these systems. It's just
I remember, I remember, and this is an anecdote from like 5 years ago, and maybe things have changed for the better now. But I remember, what a lot of people would do, sellers would do, is to kind of meet the letter of the law. They would, upload every single email that they'd sent and received from the customer using the Outlook add-in for Salesforce into the CRM. And we used to have like tracking software that would track customers' calls. Every organization has that. So they would just create this massive stream of activity that would go into the CRM as a way of trying to show to the leaders that they are meeting the letter of the law. But the problem there that I found was it made the CRM so noisy that you couldn't really understand the signal from the noise. Again, would love to hear, is that something you've seen, or is that more a dysfunctional organization?
so I think people do that. I haven't seen it where every email gets loaded and this depends this whole big thing. But I think anyone who does that, it's just garbage in, garbage out. Like there's no value in everything in there. I think the tension is getting an email's worth of information or a 5 email back and forth strings worth of information or into a concise amount of information that should be within the CRM that has the salient points. That's these are the action items. These are the next steps. These are the issues we might be seeing. That's the stuff that needs to get the CRM, not not the 14 paragraphs that were across 7 different emails. Like no one needs that. And your leaders can't what am I looking at here? Like it's salesperson. It's not going to do them any favors with their manager and their manager's manager if that's what they do.
Right. Yeah. But that's why this discussion is so rich, and there's so many facets to it. You're right. Like, if you put in, garbage out, you put in every single thing, it kind of makes your CRM unusable. But the flip side of that, and I'll play the devil's advocate here. The flip side of that, Dave, is that if you're trying to put thought out, intelligent summaries of where the actual deal is with the customer, who are the detractors, who are the influencers, do they have the budget, the authority, the need, and all that stuff, that takes time. And I think you correctly identified time sometimes is the enemy. You don't have enough of it in a day, and you're trying to sell to customers. You don't have enough time to think about how do I write an intelligent update that goes into the CRM. So I think there's a challenge there.
There is some folks are just inherently good at it. Most folks are not, or they're good at it but just refuse to do it. And so I mean, there's definitely this give and take when it comes to that. And to be quite honest, I don't care how thoughtful the note is. I care how pertinent the information is. Right? So even if it's 5 bullet points with what's going on, that's brilliant if it gets into the CRM and everyone knows what's happening. Now, the better written it is, the more strategic it is, of course. But if we can even get to a point where, heck, these are the 3 things that just came out of the last 4 calls, emails, or Slacks, whatever it is. I know I have to follow up with this person. I got to get an NDA out, and these are some 2 gaps we saw. If that can be synthesized and it's available, then everyone's on the same page. As long as everyone has visibility into that opportunity that's working on that deal, right? And it's not just your sales manager, your CRO. Like I ran a solutions consulting organization. Your solutions consultant, your pre-sales engineer, whatever you want to call that individual, they need access to this stuff as well if they're going to be in front of a prospect, demoing, having a deep technical conversation. And so if it just sits in an email or a Slack or a phone call, it's causing a lot of friction in that deal. And that's just in a new op. Imagine there's a customer going on and I'm trying to upsell something. Then you've got another problem where I might have a customer in red, or they have a big problem with our procurement solution or our API, and now I'm trying to upsell them something else. I've got no recollection of that. There's so much friction that happens if we don't get that information into the system.
I think you're leading us into a very interesting direction here, which is, you talked about emails, you talked about Slack. I'm sure you have the same experience, but the organizations where I have direct knowledge of, there's at least like 4 or 5 different, I won't call them systems of record, Dave, but authoritative places of information. There might be like a mini ERP system. There's definitely the CRM. There is Slack, which is not a system of record for customers, but it is a source of a lot of information. There's emails. There might be like a custom product usage dashboard. You know, I've worked with sellers where, like, before they reply to a customer, they have to go through like 4 or 5 different applications just to make sense of where is the customer in their life cycle right now. Like, again, I'd ask you, is that like an unusual experience I've had, or is that a fairly common thing across the industry?
No, I mean, I can't speak to everything. I can speak to my experiences, right? I do think there's just so much noise. And I think because I have my email, I have my Slack, I'm on phone calls, I'm on team meetings, there's different knowledge bases I can go to. There's, a different solution for customer account management versus new sales and all this kind of stuff. I don't always know a lot of different things. I don't know where that customer is, if it's an existing customer. I may not know where the deal is. I may not know where the product is.
Yeah.
Like, I may not know what we can or can't support. I don't know a lot of it, like where the most recent case study is, whatever it may be, because it's all sitting in different places within the organization. And I think one of the things I've noticed in the sales folks I've worked with is information overload, and it's too much to process. And even if it was in all one system, it's too much to process. Now break it up across 6. And so, yeah, it's a big problem. And one last thing, Slack as a concept is a great idea. I remember at Chipotle when they implemented Slack, I created the first Slack channel for a team for Q&A purposes. It's called Ask the SC. So if you have a technical question, which is cool, and then when your organization grows to salespeople, it's just a bunch of noise in there, and people keep on asking the same question, and you get different answers. And so that noise is real.
I'm sure this will resonate with everybody, but I can't tell you how many times I've seen this. A seller would ask a question, hey, does our product do XYZ? Whatever that XYZ might be. And the head of the SE or the enablement team or the VP of engineering would be, they would have this very angry, they would take a very angry tone and reply to this, like, yes, we of course do this, and we just posted about this in that Slack channel last week. Did you not read that Slack message? In my mind, I'm going, yeah, sure, you posted it, but who reads every single Slack message? And even if they do they really connect the dots and understand, like, what does that even mean? It's just, you're right, it's just so much information out there.
And when folks are selling a solution, there may be different components, modules. They may see this scenario once every 2.5, 3 months. Yeah. So even if at one point they knew it, it's not part of their normal sales motion. So they're going to continually ask that same question because, you do something once every 2 months, you may not remember it until you get to your 7th, 8th time of doing it, which is another problem in the sales world, right? And I don't blame the AE for that, the salesperson for that. Once again, information overload, and I'm not doing this type of use case all that often.
I worked for more than 10 years at Barracuda and had a great time there, Dave. It's a great company, and I personally had a great time there. And one of the things that Barracuda did really well was we figured out a standard way of selling one product to a customer and then selling them more products, which is, I think, a very, very good sales strategy. The problem there was Barracuda, about 5 years ago, had 7 distinct products, which is good for a land and expand strategy. But for a seller, it was just a nightmare because if you just sold a firewall and then somebody asks you about a backup or a data protection product, just like you said, that question is not in your normal repertoire. You don't even know the modules, the areas, and you would just ask that same question over and over again.
And then when you do that land and expand, and you'll have 7 different products, then you have organizational structural conversations you have to have. Do I have to have specialists for each one of these, or is a generalist? Um, on the flip side of that land and expand is there are solutions out there where you need to sell a combined set to be differentiated to win the deal, right? And so it's an interesting that a little bit off course. It's not straight information, but you sometimes can't just say I'm only going to sell the invoice product because they need other 2 things because your competitor's doing the same thing, and how do you differentiate? So it's when you get outside the core where, yeah, we updated this component 2 months ago. I didn't know. Well, we can support that currency now. I didn't know. Right? That kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, but I think again, you're taking us on a very interesting area, because like even at Barracuda, we had multiple products, and what happened there was, this tension between the salesperson, the sales team wanting to specialize in one particular product just so they can do a really good job in selling that, but the organization had an incentive to create this product mix because they're trying to show that they had their revenue is across multiple products. So they would incentivize sales teams to say, oh, you'd get double accelerators for certain products and less for others, because they're trying to normalize their mix. And that would cause the sales team to, maybe trash between products is the wrong and too strong a word, but move between different products. And that moving between different products caused them to lose a lot of, tribal knowledge as they went back and forth.
There's a reason why, as organizations grow, a solutions consulting team becomes more important. It's because you can't have 7 products and be an expert in all of them, right? Yeah. Do I think sometimes people lean too heavily on not learning the product because they have this crutch? Absolutely. But there's got to be a way to give confidence to the salesperson to know the information they're providing is accurate, relevant, and current, without always having to ask another person.
This asking another person, I've seen this so many times. We would have this constant battle between, I've seen a constant battle between the SDR team and the AE team. The SDR team would, send these what they thought was sales qualified leads over to the AE team, and the AE team would push back and say, you haven't done enough product discovery for me to actually take this deal forward. And then the SDR team would come back and say, look, that's your job versus. So that line between, has the SDR team done enough work to send it over to the AE? I think that existed because the SDR team didn't have enough confidence to ask the right product questions. They were like, as soon as the customer answers the phone, I'm going to send it over to the AE team. And again, I think the root of that goes back to the lack of confidence because of lack of knowledge and information, because there's just too much of it out there.
And I also think it's structural in nature. So like that's what they want the SDR team to do. And I think a lot of SDRs would like to do more than just get answers to 3 questions and move along, right? I think buyers, and a buyer coming in, the first person they talk to, they want that individual, whoever that first person they're chatting with, to have enough information about the solution, the product, the offering, versus having them book another call to have a chat. That's the way that the whole selling motion is changing. And so you need to be informed on that first call to answer some very important questions that buyer has.
We've talked a lot about the structural and motivational problems that might be impacting sales teams, but I'm sure it's not all doom and gloom out there. I'm sure you have seen, you have been part of, and you've helped build amazingly well-functioning sales teams. So tell us about what works in these cases. Like what does good look like here?
Successful, right? But what do I think good looks like? I think what good looks like 3 years ago and what good looks like now, I think is very much changing thanks to generative AI and things of that nature. First and foremost, I think a strong partnership between sales enablement, and SEs. I think understanding what people really need to know. I think there's a level of depth a salesperson should know, and a level of depth that is getting above what you could honestly expect someone to know, right? Um, Delivering it frequently and reinforcing it. But I think that the thing that's been missing that I think is changing, well, two things I think have been missing, I think are changing now, is the democratization of information. Like these chat prompts can do, and things that can allow me to get access to information. Now, I think the flip side is ensuring that you've kind of walled off only the information that they should have access to, and the most accurate, most recent information. So I think there's just like this getting access to product documentation. So if I say we can do something, I can quickly ask, not have to ask Dave, I can ask the system and it'll give me the right answer. That's one side of the fence when it comes to information. But that's only if it's documented in X system, Y system, etc. And that's me having to be like me being proactive.
Right.
I move to a place, two different things. One where a lot of those manual tasks that I need to do can be done for me,
right.
Or at least teed up for me to do them. Like as part of a Slack conversation, an email conversation, I need to send an NDA. Well, where's the most recent NDA? All that kind of stuff. If there that are available to just boom, send out that NDA and capture it's been done, or tell me I need to log X, Y, and Z. There are some tools out there that will help you automatically update your CRM. That's something we talked about earlier, right? I think that's very big. It's letting sellers do what they should do, which is sell and prospect and not keep. And then it's trying to find a way to pull data. I think trying to find a way to get data from all these different places. We've talked about sometimes things live in Confluence, sometimes it lives in Slack, sometimes it's in email, sometimes in the CRM, sometimes it's in your Gong, Chorus, Zoom recordings, right? Where can we find a way to get information across all of that?
Right.
So I have, one place of information that can even show me actionable items, where my deal might go wrong, but then it's looking at all these different places. Or something you mentioned earlier, hey, Asim, before you reach out to, Acme Inc., just know we just had 2 tickets in Zendesk that went on, right? It's just being able to proactively surface in a dashboard or some way for that individual to know what they should be doing. And then if you can do that at an individual level, surely you can put some parameters around on the manager level and give that kind of visibility. And I think that's where we're going. And I think it's a need.
I agree. And the last thing I wanted to bring up is I think I would be remiss if I didn't say, there's this idea that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I think that applies in how sales teams are run and operate as well. I have had the fortune of working with some amazing sales leaders that have had a profound impact on the sales teams that they've built. You're a sales leader. You've both built great teams, and I'm sure you've seen, other successes. I think I would be remiss in not calling out the impact that, a good sales leader has on building a smooth, frictionless sales team that just performs.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Been blessed to work with some really good sales leaders, an excellent CRO, even head of the sales excellence, sales operations, enablement, all that kind of stuff, and then the individual VPs that run different things. And I think culture is not. It's a way of instilling and enforcing process. Because I think a lot of these things are process related. When you talk about the named account situation, the SDR, not like. Those are all somewhat dictated, yes, by information, but also by these are the processes that are set up and are we enforcing them? But doing that with empathy, I think that's the key in the culture side of it. It's everyone, I think, but that cut the corners, they know the right things to do. They know what good is, or they have a strong sense of it. But they're either not being recognized or rewarded for it, or they're not being reprimanded for not doing it, and doing it in not in a punitive way, but in a way that coaches up and gives them the tools to do it. And I think that's all about setting the right culture within a sales organization.
I agree.
People know when they're not doing the right thing. Like they know. and no one wants to be slapped on the hand and told them how bad they're doing. It's how do you acknowledge, say, hey, we got to get better here, and move along. And if they don't come along, well, then you have remedy and recourse for that, which is always the last resort.
Of course. I think I think you're spot on, and I think this has been a great conversation, Dave. Anything that you think we haven't talked about in this area that we should, or do you think we've covered, like, the full gamut of? I mean, not the full gamut.
I mean, I think we've scratched the surface of Doug a little bit under in a 25-minute, whatever, a 30-minute conversation. You can get this could be, you probably write a thesis on this at getting a PhD in sales. I think, to me, the overriding thing from a salesperson when we talk about information is it's information overload. There's too much information. They may not trust all the information. They don't know where to find the information. And so there's always, and then that's like from the salesperson's lens. And then from a leadership's lens is, do I have all the information? Is it the accurate information? Is the right information for me to make decisions on forecasting? And I'm calling a number to the CRO, and I'm the VP of this unit. Do I trust the information that my AEs and my manager have brought to me? And so there's two silos of information in my head. There's the information the sales teams need to be successful, the individual AE, and where do I get it? Is it accurate? Do I trust it? It didn't come from that one person. It came from that. That's a real thing. And then there's the information that the sales and leadership and company leadership need to know to understand the business and the health of the business and the health of deals. And those can be solved, I think, with almost the same set of tools if they're deployed and implemented properly. Now, they may not exist yet, or they're in the process of being developed, but like with what I have seen in my job evaluating AI for a sales organization at Chipotle in my previous role, there's a lot of really cool, excuse my language, shit out there that can be tied together, or at some point, I think will converge into a tool that can solve a lot of these problems.
Very well said. Very well said. I get the feeling you have a lot of obviously you have a lot of knowledge and experience and ideas in this area. If somebody that's listening to this want to reach out to you, should they reach out to you via email, LinkedIn? How can people reach out to you?
I would say LinkedIn's probably the best. But if someone wants to send me an email at david.schultz@gmail, I'm fine with that as well. But yeah, I'm happy to, and it's something I'm passionate about because it's something I'm learning. The cool thing is I'm learning because everyone's learning AI right now and what can and can't be done. And because of where I sat, I wasn't an AE, I wasn't in sales operations, I wasn't in enablement. I was like the SE role, which kind of then touches the rest of the company. The view you get is very different. It's like sitting outside and seeing the entire landscape than like sitting outside the Grand Canyon and seeing all of it versus sitting inside the Grand Canyon only seeing up, right? It's just a very different view you get. And so I have a lot of there's excitement about what can be done.
I think your passion clearly shows. And on that note of the soaring vista of sitting outside the Grand Canyon and taking it all in, I want to say thank you for for talking about this. It was educational.
My pleasure. Always fun to chat with you.
All right, cool.